In the last session, I discussed about different systems of classification, like the two kingdom classification, three kingdom, and then four and five kingdom classification. Here, each system of classification has some drawbacks, right? So that is why in course of time they have been replaced with the newer system of classifications. So at present I told you we have seven kingdom classification that we will discuss it later, and as per the textbook we will discuss only five kingdom classifications. Okay, so now as I told that there are some drawbacks to each of these classification. If we take in case of two kingdom classification, so that was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus, right? So what is the drawback of this? So drawback of this classification, two kingdom classification, so he did not distinguish between prokaryotic organisms and eukaryotic organisms, right? So we know prokaryotic organisms are the one who don't have nucleus, and eukaryotic organisms have nucleus. So he did not differentiate between these two. So that is one drawback. And another drawback is that he also did not distinguish between unicellular and multicellular organisms. Did not distinguish between unicellular and even multicellular organisms. He did not make any differentiation. Here, unicellular, which means an organism made up of only one cell, like we see in case of amoeba. So here amoeba is a unicellular organism. The whole organism itself is made up of only one cell. Then coming to multicellular. So in this case, the organism is made up of many cells, like we see in case of sponges who belong to phylum Porifera. So we'll see what these sponges and Porifera all in our coming sessions, right? And then another one is that he also did not distinguish between photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic organisms. Photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic organisms, right? So photosynthetic organisms are the organisms that synthesize their own food by the process of photosynthesis. It means, so photosynthetic organisms, they perform photosynthesis, whereas the non-photosynthetic organisms, they do not perform photosynthesis. Okay, so these are the drawbacks which were rectified in R.H. Whittaker's five kingdom classification. So now we will see that R.H. Whittaker's five kingdom classification. So R.H. Whittaker's five kingdom classification. Now here, for anything to classify, we require a basis. So on what basis Whittaker classified all the organisms into 5 kingdoms. So that's what I call criteria. So there is a criteria for performing the classification. So let's say criteria followed by R.H. Whittaker to classify organisms. So what are the criteria? What are all those criteria that he followed to classify the organisms? So here, to classify those organisms, he considered cell structure of the organisms. Then he also considered thallus organization of the organisms. So here thallus, which means undifferentiated body. So we use this word mostly in lower group of organisms, like for example bryophytes, algae, so where the body is not differentiated into root, stem and leaf. So for that purpose, those organisms, we say they have thallus organization. So they have thallus organization. Okay, right. So he considered even that thallus organization for his classification. Right. Then the third one is a mode of nutrition. So he also considered the mode of nutrition. Okay, so this nutrition is how they obtain the food. So that may be autotrophic nutrition, and then heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, so this also he considered. So autotrophic nutrition, which means the organisms who prepare their own food materials. So here organisms prepare their own food, whereas heterotrophic nutrition are the one who depend on others for food. So they are called heterotrophic organisms, and the type we see in them does depend on other organisms. So they are heterotrophic organisms, right? So that's about the mode of nutrition. So the next one R.H. Whittaker considered is reproduction. So whether they are undergoing sexual mode of reproduction, asexual mode of reproduction, okay, and there are several types of asexual mode of reproduction. All that we will see in coming sessions, right? Then lastly, he also included phylogenetic relationships. So phylogenetic relationships is evolutionary relationships. We know that the organisms that evolved on this planet, so I told you that there is no special creation of organisms, and organisms evolved on the planet itself. And these organisms which evolved, they started to diversify in course of time and resulted in formation of so many species here. Okay, so how that one species, so it indicates that one species is in relation with the other species. So we need to consider even that evolutionary relationships for the process of classification. So R.H. Whittaker even considered that phylogenetic relationships. Okay, so these are the main points that R.H. Whittaker considered for classifying all the organisms into 5 kingdoms. So now let us see his classification. So the first group of organisms that evolved on our planet are the one who belong to Monera Kingdom. So this group Monera, in course of time, it gave rise to Protista. So these Protistants, in course of time, they gave rise to three groups fungi. Then they also have given to Plantae and then Animalia. So these three kingdoms evolved from Protista. So the Protistants are common ancestors for the group fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So I told you that the first group of organisms to live on this planet Earth are Monerans, and they have evolved into Protistants. It took millions and millions of years and then evolved into the group Protista, and that Protista, it got diversified so into fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So any living organism on this planet will come under any of these five kingdoms. Okay, of course there are some exceptions. There are some other organisms that have not been included in the classification. That is the reason we made six kingdom classification and then even seven kingdom classification. Okay, so this is not the final classification. I told you the classification will change time to time, right? Now these Monerans, it includes includes unicellular prokaryotic organisms. It includes unicellular prokaryotic organisms. So out of all the five kingdoms, the Monera is the only group or only the kingdom that includes prokaryotic organisms. So no other kingdoms will include prokaryotic organisms. Okay, so Monera, it includes unicellular prokaryotic organisms. And coming to the group Protista, the fungi, Plantae and Animalia, so all these are eukaryotic. All these are eukaryotic organisms. I hope you remember in the last session I told you that eukaryotic organisms are the one who have nuclear membrane. So they have nuclear membrane. So nuclear membrane presence indicates that they have nucleus. Whereas prokaryotic organisms, they do not have nuclear membrane. They do not have nuclear membrane. Okay, right. So all these Protistants, fungi, Plantae, Animalia, all of them will have nuclear membrane. Okay, so that's about the nuclear presence of nucleus and absence of nucleus. Based on it, we classified into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So out of five kingdoms, the only kingdom Monera is prokaryotic. The rest of all are eukaryotic organisms. Okay, right. So that is I consider the cell type. So the cell type prokaryotic or eukaryotic. So cell type either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Okay. The next coming to this Protista. So this group Protista, it includes. So this one includes unicellular eukaryotic. So organisms, already I mentioned it. Okay, so it includes unicellular eukaryotic organisms. All unicellular eukaryotic organisms will be included under this Protestant group. And coming to fungi, so this fungi will be having, right, either multicellular, okay, or right, loose tissue. So I will mention here, it also includes unicellular. So this also includes unicellular and multicellular, multicellular organisms. And coming to plantae, it also includes unicellular and multicellular. A very few number will be unicellular. In case of fungi, most of them are multicellular. Similarly, here also in plantae, so very few are unicellular and most of them are multicellular. And coming to animalia, we find here only multicellular. All multicellular, okay, organisms, right? So they are actually, okay, animals. So animals, I mean that animals include only all those multicellular. So here plantae, so it includes multicellular as well as unicellular organisms. Okay, then coming to body organization. So the body organization in case of Monera, it is cellular. Okay, so as I already mentioned, so in this case also I'll mention cellular, so that is unicellular. And coming to fungi, so you find either unicellular and multicellular I mentioned. So you will also see loose tissue. Okay, so multicellular or loose tissue is the body organization in case of fungi. And coming to plantae, so the plantae will be having, right, tissue or organ. So they will have tissues and organs, okay, organ level of organization. Body organization will be up to organ level. So tissue level and organ level you will see in case of plants. Okay, right. In case of fungi, it's loose tissue. Then coming to this animalia, in case of animalia, you will find tissue grade of organization, then okay, organ grade of organization, and also organ system grade of organization. So you will find all tissue, organ, and even organ grade of organization are present in case of animalia, right? So that's about body organization. Next, coming to cell wall. So coming to cell wall, so here in case of Monera, cell wall is present. Cell wall is present. So in case of Monera, I'll mention cell wall is present. And this cell wall in case of Monera is non-cellulosic. So the cell wall is non-cellulosic. So here the meaning of non-cellulosic means it's not made up of cellulose. So non-cellulose means not made up of cellulose. So it is not made up of cellulose. Okay, then what it is made up of? So this one is made up of, okay, polysaccharides. So made up of polysaccharides plus amino acids. Made up of polysaccharides and amino acids. So that's what how we see in case of Monera. Then coming to fungi, coming to Protista. So in Protista also there is a presence of cell wall, but not all of them will have the cell wall. So in Protista, some have cell wall and some of them have cell wall. Okay, And coming to these fungi, all fungi will also have cell wall. So here also all of them have cell wall, and this cell wall in fungi group is made up of chitin. So cell wall present, and this cell wall is made up of a substance called chitin. It's made up of chitin. And then coming to the plantae, so here also cell wall is present. Cell wall is present, and in this case the cell wall is made up of a substance called cellulose. So this will be having cellulose. The plant cells will have cellulose. And coming to the group Animalia, so this is the only group where we don't find right cell wall. No cell wall. Right, out of 5 kingdoms, the 4 kingdoms have cell wall, and the only kingdom that doesn't have cell wall is kingdom Animalia. Right, then coming to the mode of nutrition. So coming to mode of nutrition, in case of Monera, the mode of nutrition, so it includes both autotrophic mode of nutrition, and also it includes heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Under autotrophic, right, it shows 2 modes of nutrition. So that is photosynthetic and chemosynthetic. So it shows photosynthetic and chemosynthetic. So here meaning photosynthetic, where the source of energy is light, whereas in case of chemosynthetic, the source of energy is chemicals. So if the source, depending on the source of energy, we classified into photosynthetic and chemosynthetic. Both are autotrophic, so they will be synthesizing their own food materials, but the source of energy in chemosynthetic is chemicals, and photosynthetic, as here itself the chemo means chemicals, photo means light. So this is the one which uses light for synthesizing food materials, and this one uses chemicals to as a source of energy to synthesize food materials. And coming to heterotrophic mode of nutrition, so this will include two here. One, it is right, saprophytic, and another one parasitic. Saprophytic and parasitic. Later in our coming sessions, I will explain about this saprophytic, what actually is saprophytic nutrition, and parasitic nutrition in the next session. At present, I just give you the words. Don't worry if anywhere if I did not tell the meaning of it. So we will definitely see in the coming sessions. So because later I'm going to discuss the Monera in detail. So what are its characteristic features, examples, and what are all other organisms included in the Monera? All that we will see in in this group, and even in Protista also. All these groups I will be discussing in detail. So that's about saprophytic, parasitic mode of nutritions under heterotrophic. So Monera will show photosynthetic, chemosynthetic, saprophytic, and parasitic mode of nutritions. Coming to the group Protista. So in Protista, we will see autotrophic as well as heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So I'll just, so this group also shows autotrophic, okay, and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So here under the group autotrophic mode of nutrition, we will be seeing only the photosynthetic, and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Okay, so these are the two modes of reproduction. It means that Monera and Protista, both of them will show autotrophic as well as heterotrophic mode of nutrition with slight changes in its types. Then coming to the group fungi, so here this group fungi, it shows, so the group fungi shows heterotrophic, so only heterotrophic. I'll mention only heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and that too saprophytic type of nutrition. So saprophytic type of nutrition is a type under heterotrophic nutrition. So in case of fungi, it shows only heterotrophic nutrition, and that is saprophytic. Okay, I told you already, I'll discuss in detail in the coming session what is actually this saprophytic nutrition and how they will be obtaining the nutrition by this method. Then coming to plants, okay, in case of plants, we will see only autotrophic mode of nutrition. So here, okay, so here I'll just mention, so in case of plants only, okay, I'll just mention autotrophic, and that is under that only photosynthetic. So it shows only photosynthetic. Okay, and one more point here I will include under the fungi: saprophytic plus even parasitic. So both nutritions we will see, parasitic mode of nutrition and saprophytic also seen in case of fungi. That's only heterotrophic mode of nutrition. And in case of plants, it is autotrophic, and we know under autotrophic we have to chemo and okay, photo. So here we will see only photosynthetic mode of reproduction. And coming to animalia, so this group shows, okay, heterotrophic. It shows heterotrophic mode of nutrition. And under this heterotrophic mode of nutrition, this one includes holozoic mode of nutrition, and another one saprophytic mode of nutrition. Okay, so animals will show heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and the two types of nutritions that the animals usually show is holozoic and saprophytic. So of course there are others which here I am just mentioning briefly, but when we discuss detailedly about the Monera, I may give you some more extra points. Okay, so this is a brief classification that was proposed by R.H. Whittaker. Okay, right. So in the next session, we will discuss each of this kingdom one by one in detail.